I feel like I'm not even awake yet, and yet this game is already over. How you doing, Mets fans, whoever you're a fan of? It's your boy Wardy, and we're back at it with the latest Metropolitan postgame segment, as the Mets are unfortunately in a series split here against, yes, the Washington Nationals by a final score of 1-0. Between blowing a 5-run lead yesterday for the for the second time over the past week, that was the first nail in the coffin for the Mets in winning the series. Now you have an 11 a.m. game today where both offenses had nothing to show because they weren't awake themselves. Irvin carves up everyone and their mother. Jose Quintana essentially does the same, not carving up batters, but inducing those quality outs. Both go 7+ strong quality innings, and yet all it takes is one hanger to Jesse Winker from Adrian Hauser, in which he should have never pitched to him. And I have a lot to say on that. Again, regardless on how much you guys agree or disagree with my take, I'm going to stand by that. I'm going to further explain what I mean by that exactly, why I'm a little frustrated with Carlos Mendoza's decision there. However, I do not believe Mendoza is at fault for today's loss. It is firmly solely on this Mets offense. There's no highlights to show today, everybody. I'm not going to pan to the highlights or anything like that, because I got nothing for you. The Mets quite literally did absolutely nothing. The fact that their lone hit today was from Jeff McNeil, the same man that you could rightfully argue didn't even want in the lineup today. Yes, I can understand the frustration here on this 4th of July, in which it's going to be a happy 4th. I have a great evening coming up, and I hope the same for each and every one of you guys watching this live and on replay. Happy holidays to each and every one of you folks, but we first have to break down what went wrong in this ball game between the two teams, how this series ultimately faltered, and how the Mets now look ahead for their big series against the towering right-hander Paul Skeens tomorrow, and Pittsburgh against those Pirates. To everybody first chiming in live on a replay, happy to have you all in here. I see Steven, Faja, how you doing? Ben, Steven, let's see, Faja again, Ben Murdoch, going up the list here, Server, Daniel Connor, again, thank you everybody for chiming in live on a replay, greatly appreciated, folks. We are going to get into the numbers a little bit here, but again, not too much to break down today. On the pitching end, this is what you got from Jose Quintana, and on the offensive end, this is what you got, a bunch of donuts. You might as well call yourself Homer Simpson if you're hungry, because you got a lot of donuts that I see here. Just one measly hit from the Mets today against the Washington Nationals. Yet again, a series where they had firmly in their grasp to not only win, but win actually comfortably, that we saw up 5 runs yesterday. God forbid the Mets could find themselves doing that, as they are now back to a game below 500. Again, mind you, the Mets have the easiest strength of schedule among all teams in the National League, at least for the remainder of the season. But this is why I've told each and every one of you, just because you have a favorable schedule does not mean that that is going to equate to wins. We all know these games are tough. We all know the Mets are still a 500 ball club, even with how great of a month of June that they've had. They have plenty more things that they need to work on, headlined by that bullpen, of course, that needs reinforcements. Yesterday, literally, Edwin Diaz will return in the coming days around July 6th from his suspension, but it's safe to say that Edwin Diaz suspension was a huge problem for this Mets bullpen, as now, again, after today's game, are sitting just under an ERA of 9 over the past 6 games for the Mets, the worst in all Major League Baseball, and we unfortunately have this unfortunately taxed and depleted bullpen to thank for it. The offense was a no-show today, so again, if you have anyone to blame as to why the Mets lost this ball game, it first starts and ends with the offense, so we're going to talk about more here in a second, everybody. But to hop back in this one now, let's get back to the main slide here. Scott, thank you so much for the donation. I appreciate that. Scott says, granted, you can't win a game with 0 runs. Many using Hauser there made no sense. Many has to know Winker's history, but that was Hauser's inning. Yeah, that was, okay, so let's talk. Let's jump right into this, because I've spent the past 40 minutes going back and forth with a lot of my viewers on Twitter, people who love me, people who hate me, as we're doing this back and forth in this discourse. So before we get into breaking down my thoughts here on Hauser and everything in between, folks, just give me 1 second, as I want to make sure that we have everything properly set up here live on YouTube. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe on as you first chime in, folks, is greatly appreciated. And to my replay viewers as well, hit those buttons. Thank you so much, and let me know your biggest takeaway from today's 1-0 loss and series split as a whole. Normally, this is a game that I honestly wouldn't go out of my way to cover. However, I've been wanting to stay consistent with this 1 and 2. It's the end of a series. You know, if this was the third game out of a 4-game set, I think there would be a little bit more interest to not cover it. However, with the way that the Mets have been rolling here and to see them falter on the offensive end the way that they did, we need to have this discussion here. So let's get into exactly that. Again, this is a Mets team that had no business splitting this series with the Washington Nationals, a series that was right there for the taking and they allowed it to slip away. So let's get into, again, what transpired in this ball game. Very little on the transpired part, and ultimately why the Mets lost. Because, of course, they lost because of that offense. But let's talk about some positives here, and the positives are headlined by Mr. Jose Quintana. Quintana was absolutely beautiful with his arsenal today, and while Quintana was not overwhelming with the swing and miss stuff by any stretch, he was able to induce those ground ball outs, get some fly ball outs, and just do it at a quality rate in doing so. That's why he went 7 innings of 4 hits, 0 earned run ball, 3 walks, 1 strikeout on the game today. And Quintana was asked about the prospect of him being a trade chip, and he really didn't talk about that. He said, this is my first rodeo, essentially. I'm just happy to help the team right now. And Quintana's ERA has dropped over a full run plus over his last couple starts because of how effective he has been. And I do have to give a tip of the cap to Jose Quintana. I understand that both these teams had nothing to show today because I think everyone was really tired for 11 a.m. game, a turnaround after a night game yesterday, which is beyond valid and understandable. I completely get that. I was exhausted and still am now talking about this game, honestly. But still, even then, Jose Quintana proved that, again, he's a guy that the Mets are not going to necessarily have a very easy decision as to what they should do. Now, personally, do I think you should still trade Jose Quintana? Should you, of course, get quality outings from Kristen Scott, get your huge reinforcement of an ace there in Kodai Senga post-All-Star break? Yeah, I do think that still makes a strong level of sense. Should Jose Quintana continue to put up zeros similarly to what he did today? And Quintana, as we know, is a soft-tossing southpaw that needs pinpoint accuracy to have success. He's not dominant with his stuff. He struggles with the swing and miss, and we know that against quality teams, Jose Quintana is going to more than likely find himself having a problem. But against the Washington Nationals, right in the similar boat of the Mets here, below 500 as well, right nipping out the heels there in that wild card race, I can understand Jose having the kind of outing that he did today. So not to take any credit away from him, but I'm just saying understanding the context of this matchup, I think too is valid to a degree. So for Jose Quintana, thank you so much for a quality start today. We at Mets fans greatly appreciate that from our veteran southpaw. And regardless of what happens to you post-trade deadline, it's outings like this that make a difference. And that is why it stings all that much more that you couldn't secure the series victory yesterday, because you wasted a fantastic starting pitching performance the way Jose Quintana certainly gave you today. This Mets offense, again, had literally nothing to show. If you were not named Jeff McNeil, you had no hits for the offense today. So I don't want to hear anyone saying, okay, this offense, they aren't to blame. No, they are single-handedly to blame for today's loss. Are they to blame for the past month and a half of greatness? No, they are the reason for that. This offense has propelled the Mets more often than not. Even yesterday, where again, it's unfortunate that they lost, they still put up 5+ runs. They have been putting up runs and quality, and they unfortunately faced an Irvin who had just over a 3 ERA entering today's start, has been dominant this season, right around a 1 whip, and made the Mets pay big time. And I said in yesterday's postgame segment, this could go in the way of, again, him absolutely carving up the Mets, in which he did, or hopefully the Mets getting him out in the 5th or 6th inning. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, as Irvin got the job done, to say the least, there for the Washington Nationals, and the Mets again go on to lose this one. Let's hear how you doing, Banners. Only happy to have you in here. He says, reminds me a lot of the D-backs series pre-London. Felt like it should have been an easy series one, but here we are. No, you're 100% right. You can even say the same to a degree there with the series we lost against the Houston Astros. That was very much within the grasp of course, trying to secure and win, and the Mets allowed it to get away, which has been the case with them a lot this season, which I would like to mention. Let's not forget, as entertained as the Mets have been, obviously, for the past month and a half, and we've been riding high with it, I still expect and want the Mets to be both buying and selling by the deadline. Does not change the fact that this Mets team is still a 500 ball club right now. Everything about them profiles as a 500 ball club. The offense has been beyond proficient, but the pitching, that bullpen, has been such a liability for the past number of weeks to month now that it helps balance out why this team, again, is sitting right around afloat at 500. But now let's talk about the controversy, if you will, the drama that I personally had with a lot of fans. And again, understandably so there on Twitter. I would like to first and foremost say, I do not fault any Mets fan that is very much against my take here, because I understand the rationale behind why Adrian Hauser was pitching there to Jesse Winker. I can understand not wanting to give a batter a free base that we saw there late in the ball game. However, the argument that, oh, you don't want to give him a free base for a chance for him to steal second base or get to second and then being the game-winning run, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't in this situation, because Jesse Winker won the game here for the Nationals. And to take a step back here, Adrian Houser comes in the ballgame, as we know, later in this one, and the most frustrating aspect is Jesse Winker comes off the bench. Known Mets killer that we know. No, he's not Aaron Judge. No, he's not Shohei Ohtani, so it's not like you should always give this guy Barry Bonds treatment. We're aware of that. But Jesse Winker has also been very notorious in having success against the Mets, one, but two, especially against Adrian Houser. When you have splits of batting roughly 500 in your career against one singular pitcher, mind you, Jesse Winker entering this at-bat against Adrian Houser, in which Houser gave up the bomb, had 5 home runs against Houser in his career. Any other pitcher, he's had no more than 2. So clearly, he looks fantastic against Adrian Houser, a ground ball pitcher, working those sinkers as well, and knows how to eat up those pitches for breakfast. Adrian went into this at-bat honestly looking like a guy that didn't want to challenge Winker too much, and instead threw him a hanging curve right down the dick, and of course he rips out a right, and ultimately that is the ball game. I believe that was Winker's 10th home run of the year or so. But how did we get here, and was this the right move, right? Because Adrian Houser has been absolute nails in this Mets bullpen. There is no one denying that. I'll be the first to say that Adrian Houser being moved into this bullpen has been absolutely fantastic. He has just over a 1 ERA as a reliever this season for the Mets versus a very inflated ERA as a starter. But in the case of Houser here, this is where my argument personally comes. First and foremost, I did not feel the way I felt about Jesse Winker versus Adrian Houser after the fact of him hitting the home run. As soon as we knew the splits entering this matchup, I wanted to see Jesse Winker essentially walked. And again, is that a managerial thing to do? Do most managers in the game, especially in a 0-0 ball game, at the end of the game, intentionally walk a batter for potentially putting them in scoring position eventually? No, they don't. So I understand why Mendoza didn't do that based on that philosophy alone. However, it's a situation looking back that, again, it is what it is now, but you have to wonder, because if you do walk Jesse Winker there, you can then induce a double play ground ball, something that Adrian Houser knows beautifully as a ground ball pitcher. So again, the argument that, oh my goodness, it would have been a death sentence if you say walk Jesse Winker, that doesn't make sense. Well, here's the thing. It was a death sentence by pitching to him to begin with, because that was ultimately the difference maker in this ball game. Now, if the Mets got out of that inning unscathed, let's say hypothetically Jesse Winker doesn't hit that home run, and Adrian Houser gets out of that. Do the Mets have life on the offense there in the 9th inning? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Because again, this is another argument about, again, hypotheticals here, and that's why we're going to wrap this up quick, because I know, again, it's a damned if you do, a damned if you don't situation. I'm fully aware of that. This loss falls on the offense first and foremost. We all know that. However, when you're down now 1-0, deflated after giving up that bomb with a lifeless offense, I'm not overly shocked that the offense did little to nothing there for the remainder of the game as we got then to the top of the 9th inning after giving up that bomb in the bottom of the 8th. The point I'm trying to make here is that it is okay and it is justified for you fans, should you wish. Again, you don't have to, but I'm going to put my foot down and stand by this. The Mets, the reason why they lost this game is because of the offense. Doesn't mean I have to agree with Carlos Mendoza's managerial decisions. No, I do not. I'm still not going to. Again, Mendoza, there was some controversy yesterday with taking Adam Ottavino out after 3 outs. I personally thought that was the right move, because Adam Ottavino has been, again, very Jekyll and Hyde beyond just 3 outs we saw. Jake Diekman is just such an incompetent you-know-what and as a southpaw in this bullpen, walking 22 batters over 26.1 innings pitched this season now, that of course he could not get that lone out on C.J. Abrams there late in the ballgame yesterday the way we needed him to. So if you want to have gripes about Mendoza yesterday, by all means do that. I personally didn't see it all that much, because I understood why you don't want to pitch Adam Ottavino beyond 3 outs there. Even with him having some rest on his side, this is Adam Ottavino. Everyone crying saying that they want Adam to stay in the ballgame yesterday, the same fans that probably don't even want Adam Ottavino in this bullpen. So as we fast forward today, after again you have a deflating 5-run loss, where again you were up 5 runs, I should say, and you of course let them all get away. You squandered that victory, you squandered that ability to secure a series victory. We fast forward not even a full day later, and now you're telling me we're going to pitch to the one guy out of this entire lineup today that has easily the most favorable numbers. And I know the argument here again is going to be, well, Wardy, if you're going to be like that for anyone that has great splits, then you're not going to pitch against a lot of guys in the game today. And I understand that. I'm not trying to sit here and say that Carlos Mendoza Mendoza is the sole reason why the Mets lost today. It's far from it. All I'm saying is that in that specific situation, for a Mets team that is very much informed with the information that they utilize, it would have been nice to see them really showcase that a bit more there and that at bat against Jesse Winker. Because again, at absolute worst, if you walk Jesse Winker there, he scores. And we still probably lose the game, right? So, again, it is what it is. That is what I have to say about the Jesse Winker, Adrian Houser, Carlos Mendoza bullpen decision there. When you have obnoxious splits the way that you do versus the next guy's coming up. And yeah, Adrian Houser builds his game completely off of not only swing and miss, which we have seen more of him as a reliever because the velocity has been up a couple ticks. He's been looking very strong. I don't have a lot of gripes with Houser outside of throwing a meatball right to Jesse Winker, who of course is his daddy. But Jesse Winker, again, has been his daddy for his entire career when they match up. Why not walk him there and try to induce a double play ball? That's all I have to say about that, even if, again, it doesn't make sense from the managerial point of view. That is how I feel, and I'm not going to lose my mindset from how it currently is. I'm really not. I was not happy with that decision, the same way I wasn't happy with the Mets having just one measly hit today, but it is what it is, and now let's continue to break down everything that transpired in not only this series loss, but everything in between. Let's see, guys. All right, Gregory Great Memory says, absolutely on the broadcast, they were saying Winker stats, and my thought before he even came up was, oh no, don't pitch to this guy, but Houser is a major league pitcher and he's got to know his history for sure. And again, Houser has been very quality in this Mets bullpen, so I don't want to take a lot away from him either. Again, you're going to have hanging pitches. They are going to come and go. It was an unfortunate one. This was just kind of a bad luck situation for the Mets here, where a lot of things have went wrong with the bullpen, and yet again, the bullpen, again, is the decider in the ball game, even though the offense is to blame here. Again, we all know that. I tweeted earlier too, and a lot of fans read it wrong, and for those fans, I apologize, so let me reiterate. I tweeted earlier, this is all on Mendoza. Again, how can you fathom allowing Adrian Houser to pitch anything in the zone there to Jesse Winker when you look at those obnoxious splits especially? Some people thought that I was saying that Carlos Mendoza is to blame for the loss itself. No, that is not what I'm saying. The offense is, but it is okay to still have criticism of a manager when you're not happy with their decision. Regardless on if it was valid or not, we all have our selective opinions, the same way that I have opinions out here every single day that a lot of you guys either love or hate, and that isn't going to change. And my big opinion today is Adrian Houser shouldn't have been pitched to. He should have been intentionally walked. And again, the Mets still lose this one 1-0. Maybe they still do regardless, but again, we're never going to know. Just one of those things, again, truly, you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. For all the people that say you should have walked him, yes, that very well could have been a situation where he scored there, but we're not going to know. It is what it is. Let's see here. Was Danilo Nunez? I think the only thing is, okay, did you maybe want to consider Reed Garrett a little bit more there than Houser? I know Houser is maybe more fresh, but Reed Garrett, again, doesn't have the obnoxious splits against Winker the way that Houser does. I would still probably argue that you want to pitch Houser there. I just want an intentional walk. And again, I understand the viewpoint. I understand how much you guys may agree or disagree with that take, but that's just one that I personally am going to have my foot down on this one. And to be honest, both teams were definitely not awake for this game. They weren't. They literally weren't, guys. I will be frank with you. I did not wake up until the bottom of the second. I didn't. My alarm didn't go off. My girlfriend woke me up, and I was like, oh my, it's past 1 o'clock already. Okay, we got ourselves a ball game. Let's get into it. Let's discuss. Priest in the chat says the team didn't want to play today, and that's all on the manager. Never mind that he's clueless about really pitching. No, that isn't all on the manager, because the same applies for Dave Martinez there in the Nationals. No, you're going to have slow days. This offense has been electric. No one showed up offensively today. Literally one man showed up offensively today, and that was Jesse Winker. And the only reason why he showed up is because he got a meatball of a curveball down the dick that any competent hitter is going to rip. Right? So again, that honestly, the more I say that, the more it just makes me think, okay, even if it wasn't Jesse Winker there, if he threw that hanger to anyone, what would the outcome be, right? Winker, of course, has power. He's going to be feasting on Houser, in which he knows his arsenal very well. But still, it's one of those things where I'm not going to sit here and blame Mendoza for the no-show on the offense today. That falls on the offense. These guys deserve to be critiqued when they need to be critiqued. This offense has been fantastic for the past month and a half. But look at the Nationals today. They were the exact same turnout on on the offensive end outside of one barreled baseball to right than the Mets. There was literally no difference between the two for the most part. They had a couple more hits, yes, but again, nothing to really show for it because Jose Quintana was brilliant and getting out of his jams today. Let's see here. I'd like to know the opinions on the fact that both lineups were hitting the ball hard all day. 38% of the at-bats resulted in hard hit balls, and the actual Mets hard hit percentage was 50% today. Batted ball luck was not in our favor. Again, luck was not in our favor today. Irvin was working his pitches beautifully, and while he did induce some hard contact, he was able to get clear lineouts, and that was huge, and that was effective against this Mets lineup, which again has been free swinging early and often all season long. So when I look at the outcome of today's game, as you lose this 1-1-0, you're now again a series split, you're a game below 500. The only reason why this stings more for me, and I think a lot of Mets fans here, is simply put, this was a series that you had firmly in your grasp, and you're just trying to continue to make headway and not only get to 500, get above and really work from there. Instead, now the Mets, again, a game below 500, now have to face the most exciting young right-hander Major League Baseball in Pittsburgh tomorrow. Thankfully for the Mets case, but not for his case, because I don't wish him any wrongdoing whatsoever. But Jared Jones, remember him, the young right-hander, half the size of Paul Skeens, but throws gas just like Paul Skeens a little bit. Jones, who went 5 scoreless innings against the Mets earlier this season and was pulled because of a pitching limit that he had, innings limit, and then we beat up on freaking Aroldis Chapman, and he got pulled from the game. That was hilarious. And that was back when Adrian Hauser was still a starter for the Mets, mind you, because I think he started that game, if I'm not mistaken. Jared Jones, unfortunately, was pulled yesterday. He was put on the IL, so Jones will not be facing the Mets this weekend, so we will not be facing that true three-headed monster in Pittsburgh of a starting rotation of Skeens, Keller, and Jones. We're going to face Skeens game 1, a game 2 will be a bullpen game or a spot start for someone in Pittsburgh, and then game 3 will more than likely be Mitch Keller barring any changes. So the Mets, again, do have no easy tasks on the pitching end. This comes, again, after a series against the Nationals where you had no answers for Hers, where you had no answers for Gore, and you had absolutely no answers here for Irvin. The only answers that you had were yesterday, but again, when you look at the starters for the Nationals, it's not surprising that you had the struggles that you did. The Mets are falling back in a similar category that they found themselves in that we saw in the month of May, where things were going wrong. And what I mean by that is the Mets' inability to hit against starting pitching, and they pounce at times too little too late once it's against said bullpen. Whether that's in the 6th, 7th, or 8th innings, however deep these starters go. And this is something that we may very well see again full-fledged before our very eyes this series in Pittsburgh. So it's imperative for this Mets offense to make sure that they obviously go free swinging in big time against Paul Skeens, who's going to pound the zone. Of course, has a disasterly fastball, those breaking pitches. And the best thing about Paul Skeens is that it's not like he just has this lively heater that touches 101, 102. It's how it's so lively. The mechanics behind Skeens are actually stuff that makes you believe that this is sustainable to a degree. He has fantastic mechanics. I'm not looking forward to facing him whatsoever. He is not small. Who are we talking about in the chat? Let me know, everybody. Greatly appreciate that. But again, folks, as we continue to break down this one and we break down this series, my ultimate takeaway is this was just one of those series, like many this season, where the Mets allowed to slip away. And now it's imperative for them to, again, hopefully take 2 out of 3 here against Pittsburgh, get back to 500. If not above 500, that would be ideal. Obviously, you're not going to get above 500 unless you find yourself with a series split. But if you can win 2 out of 3, at least get to 500, that would certainly be ideal. So hopefully the Mets can find his brother more than anyone, because my brother was in attendance at this ball game today. That poor SOB. I do not wish this harm or pain on quite literally anyone whatsoever, especially in the case of the Mets losing this one in embarrassing fashion the way that they did here by a final score of 1-0. Folks, we're going to get into a little bit more here on Jose Quintana and what was working right for him. We're going to talk a bit about his trade value as well and what it means for the Mets leading up to the trade deadline. But before we do, let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsors on the channel, and let's start with our great friends where you guys can get involved today for all your sports betting needs with our awesome friends at Yes BetUS.
BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook and casino. Live betting and racebook. We're celebrating 30 years with a historic offer. A 125% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits. Plus 10% gambler's insurance. Get started today. BetUS, where the game begins.
As always, everybody, make sure to check out our friends by clicking the link in the description down below. That way you too get a 125% bonus, not your first, not your second, but your first 3 deposits for all your sports betting needs here at BetUS. And we've been having a great past week here. We hit on 2 of our parlays. We missed on 1, and we also hit on our UFC 303 parlay this past weekend. And as we take a look at the slate of games here for today for the MLB, that again is after this Mets game here, let's see what we got on this 4th of July, because we do have the Philadelphia Phillies and the Chicago Cubs here at 220, the Giants and the Braves, we got the Brewers and the Rockies, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, and we got Angels, Athletics, Orioles, Mariners. Oh, baby. So the Orioles, of course, I do believe are looking for a series sweep today. I love my O's so much, but I feel like, the M's, the M's offense has been lifeless. So you know what? We are going to take my O's biasly today. It's so hard not to with how great a baseball that they've been playing all season long. Padres and Rangers, this is a coin flip of a game too. Padres have been playing some better baseball as of late. They fluctuate going up and down as well. That's a coin flip game for you guys to decide. Kansas City Royals here as actually the underdog. I kind of love this against the Tampa Bay Rays here at plus 1.5 there, minus 150 on the odds. So that just means that they need to win or lose by no more than a run and a half. I'm going to take them, and we're going to go with a 3-leg parlay today with our 3rd leg. Let's see if we hopefully hit all 3, or at least hit 2 out of 3 on these ones. Brewers Rockies have been hammering all week in that series here. I don't want to jinx it too much. We got the Phillies and the Cubs here as well. Phillies are banged up, as we know. Braves Giants. Braves haven't been playing the best baseball. That's a tough one too. I'm actually going to go here with the Brewers. We're going to do it one more. I don't want to jinx it, but it feels so hard not to pick them here. This is a 3-leg parlay that is 10 to 137. So again, guys, if you want to tail these picks, make sure you bet responsibly with our great friends at BetUS by clicking the link in the description down today, because we are doing amazing Mets-related giveaways with them. We just did a Mets jersey giveaway with them a week and a half ago here on the channel. We're going to be doing awesome giveaways just like that, all just for signing up to here to BetUS and clicking the unique link in the description. But again, guys, good luck to everybody that tails their bets here on this 4th of July. Hopefully you guys get some winnings along with having fun with the fireworks, having the hot dogs, the burgers, and everything that you guys are more than likely doing on this 4th of July. So thank you all so much for that, and shout out once more to BetUS. But a hop back in this ball game, everybody. Again, I want to know your initial reactions as continued. What was Mendy or whoever created the lineup smoking when they have 4 automatic outs in the lineup? And that is a perfect transition, actually, that I want to get into. Let's talk a little bit on the offense before I talk about a little bit more on Jose Quintana, because this offense was lifeless today. We know that. But now we've reached a point here with this offense with certain players. Harrison Bader, as we know, is hopefully going to be back with the Mets soon. Bader was not in the lineup today, obviously, because of what has been going on with him after 2 days ago, hitting the wall there in center field and being banged up. He was available off the bench, though, that we know that in Harrison Bader's case. And JD Martinez got the off day today that we saw. And you have to wonder, would that have been a difference having JD in this lineup? And I think it would have been, considering how god-awful DJ Stewart was. If GJ isn't getting walks, he isn't getting a whole lot. And sadly, DJ Stewart is falling more and more in the Daniel Vogelback category of a bat from the left side of the plate. Heavier guy as well that really can't command positions well outside of DH. Yes, you can put him in the corner outfield, but are you confident? No, of course you're not, because you know he's far from a proficient defender there. He's less than proficient, to say the least. Quite the understatement there. But DJ Stewart, again, has really been a nothing burger of an offensive player outside of a few key bombs that we've seen, very few and far in between sprinkled in there. You have to believe that at this point there are guys, even internally in the minor leagues, that you might want to give a better opportunity to, even like a guy like Mike Brousseau, for example. If you want to stay on the topic of, say, veterans that have MLB caliber experience, Brousseau has been raking in AAA all year long and can play all over the infield and can command DH at times if you need him to. That, I think, makes a lot more sense, because don't you want guys with some defensive versatility, even if they don't do it at a great level, and they give you that flexibility like Jose Iglesias? Good things tend to happen here from the Mets, and it's kind of a damn shame how you didn't even have Jose Iglesias in this matchup just because you're facing a righty, when yes, McNeil did have the lone hit for the Mets today, but there was nothing else to show for it. Ben Gamel obviously got the start in the outfield because of Harrison Bader being available off the bench, but when you have, again, automatic outs the way that you do here, this was the entire lineup, but especially in the case of Gamel, Tyrone Taylor did not look great at the plate today at all today. He was really flustered there in the zone. Had a home run yesterday, which we appreciate, but Tyrone is best as a 4th outfielder for a reason. He's great in spurts, not a guy that you want necessarily playing every single day, because it's going to be hard to step up. Then in the case here, obviously, of Gamble. I'm not going to gripe about him too much because we know that he's not a guy that's usually finding himself in this lineup. But no less, we look at this offense as a whole today, and there are definitely guys here that, I not only expect, but I don't foresee being on this roster a month from now, once we're post-trade deadline. And it goes in hand with DJ Stewart. Ben Gamble's an obvious pick. Jeff McNeil, too, I think is a fairly obvious one should the Mets just come to realization that how much is he helping you? Very little, so let's do something about it. This lineup right now is going to look different. We definitely miss Starling Marte, especially in days where no one's showing up on the offensive end. JD Martinez off the bench because he was fine, but, just because of the quick turnaround from a night to early day game. He's a veteran. I get that. Trust me, I do. But it doesn't change the fact that this is a game where you really, really wish they would have had different results, right? Especially with how simple it appeared to secure a series victory, yet the Mets just couldn't find themselves doing that in this matchup. So this is what you got on the offensive end, everybody. Again, a whole lot of zeros. Francisco Lindor now is at a 246 average and a 756 OPS this season. Brandon Nimmo, 245 with an 807. Francisco Alvarez, 291 with an 850. Pete Alonso, 242 with a 794. 180, 661 for DJ Stewart, which is putrid. Mark Vientos with 291, 914. Ben Gamble, 167, 619. Tyrone Taylor, 221, 638. And Jeff McNeil, 215, 573. Again, still a bottom 5 OPS among eligible hitters in all Major League Baseball, yet we're still giving him consistent playing time because clearly that makes sense in the splits bracket. No, they don't. And don't get me started with the splits nonsense, because if we're going to base anything off splits, all the more reason not to pitch there to, yes, Jesse Winker, Mr. Adrian Hauser. But I digress. I won't say anything more on that because I think I ranted and kind of spieled most of the show explaining exactly that. It's a 4-game series, not 3. That is correct, which is why the Mets split the series and didn't secure a series victory. They could have secured a series victory if they won today, the same way they could have secured a series victory if they won yesterday. But right now, when you look at this offense, again, it has been riding high, as we know, but definitely for a team that we know is going to continue to nip at the heels, be in that wild card race the way that the Mets are right now at this point in the season, there are definitely some internal house decisions to make, and I think on the offensive end too, DJ Stewart still has an option. You should definitely consider that if you're not going to trade him outright. I think that makes all the more sense of the role right now. You have in-house options in AAA that I think you should consider, even including the outfield to a degree. I just think the Mets have enough guys to consider to warrant some changes being had. Nothing of drastic, just a roster move or two. And the same thing, again, can be said with adding to this bullpen. We talked a lot about why the Mets should be securing, why they should be looking to add and impact this bullpen for the better, and justifiably so. Again, Adrian Hauser, we all talked about that. This Mets bullpen went right around a 9 ERA over the past 6 games with Edwin Diaz being suspended. Definitely hurting with this depleted and taxed bullpen. We know it's going to be better, but in the interim right now, before we get to the trade deadline, I think there's a fair argument to say the Mets should look to acquire at least one solid reliever, right? I don't think David Stearns is going to go out of his way here to be looking to acquire some big-name relievers, especially pre-deadline where you're paying a huge fee for, where Stearns is never going to do, because David Stearns much rather utilize his own skills and finding the best out of pitchers in their arsenal versus, say, going for a short guaranteed veteran that you're going to have to give up an arm and a leg as a reliever, especially if he's a rental. It doesn't make much sense. But staying on the topic of rentals, that is where we can expect the Mets to really be dabbling in when it comes to trying to acquire relievers. Obviously, when you're shooting for the stars, I would love a southpaw like Tanner Scott in this bullpen, but I understand the value's high and it's too premature. Scott, if he's traded, won't be until closer to the trade deadline, more than likely there for Peter Bendix and the Miami Marlins. But in the case of Jalen Beeks, for example, from the Colorado Rockies, he's been having a very solid season. He's a guy that you have to wonder the Mets could give a call on soon. What kind of ask are they looking for a short-term option? That is exactly a guy that I'm taking every day of the week and on Sundays over Jake Diekman as our current southpaw option in this pen. Then you look at higher leverage a little bit. You, of course, have Estevez there with the Angels. The value might be a little high right now, but, of course, teams are calling, and there is interest there. I'm sure the Mets are among some of them, and we are actually going to be discussing, we're going to officially start to unroll our certain type of Mets trade targets next week here on the channel, so be on the lookout, folks. We're going to be highlighting some relievers, along with just some options, both that we see that they can acquire, pitching end and also maybe on the offensive end if there's any guys that make sense, and maybe even some guys that we can expect to probably be traded by the Mets here by the deadline as well. But in the interim right now for this bullpen, they definitely can use some help. We know that. The fact that we even turned to Tyler J and Matt Festa the way that we did was the worst decision that we could have made, truthfully. And I hope David obviously learned from that, and we make sure those guys don't pitch for the Mets in this bullpen again. And he's been very cutthroat, obviously, his decision making for this pen, which I've greatly appreciated. That's how you should be as a GM, especially in a 162 where your bullpen ever changes as much as it does for the Mets here. But when you look at the external options that are out there on the market, even the waiver wire, I think there is enough to be had for Stearns. I'm sure he's already been on calls trying to figure out, but to just bring in a reliever, I think would just make all the more sense. I know we need more than one reliever, Gavin, but the reality is you're likely not going to get more than one reliever right now, unless, again, you're being very creative in how you're acquiring them without giving up much assets. David Stearns does not want to give up key assets for relievers. Rightfully so. The Mets shouldn't be doing that to begin with. But what they should be doing is absolutely going out of their way right now to try to find some immediate bullpen help. And that is hopefully something we can see in the coming days. They do exactly that. They continue to churn out and try to find options internally in AAA, maybe even AA. And you have guys like Shintaro Fujinami and Bryce Montes de Oca who are working themselves back through rehab. Shintaro's looked great. Bryce has been up and down. Did not have a good outing yesterday we saw from Montes de Oca. But still doesn't change the fact that these are guys that you know are going to likely have a positive impact on this Mets bullpen at some point this season. Two flamethrowers in particular who maybe shame on me for thinking this, but I have a lot of excitement and confidence in at least one of the two being a pretty dominant reliever for the Mets this season. Even if it isn't at an overwhelming rate for how long they do it, they just give us some quality outings like we saw from Danny Young before he started to implode, like we saw from Reed Garrett having a great first month and a terrible second month. Now he's been fairly balanced out since then. Still Jekyll and Hyde, but not terrible. That is what I want to see from this Mets team. Just add a reliever. If you can add more, great. But in the interim, just get at least one reliever externally in here. There's a plethora of options. Even the Nationals with guys like, obviously, Dylan Foro, Kyle Finnegan is awesome. I've liked Finnegan for years, at least 3-4 years now with the Nationals. He's been absolute nails for them. Closer role when called upon. But Mike Rizzo is one of the most stubborn GMs in all Major League Baseball with trading in the Division I and with the Mets too. So I would not expect or foresee that to happen with the way that we see the Nationals still very much in the mix of the wild card right now. If the Nationals trade away anyone, it will not be until really closer to the trade deadline, including rental options like Jesse Winker on the offensive end to bear in mind. But yes, the Mets definitely should be adding to this bullpen like yesterday. And until that happens, we're still going to have some problems right now. Until Edwin Diaz returns, we're going to have problems. And while I firmly believe that Edwin was not at fault for his suspension, and I will stand by that for a guy that, again, had the exact same routine that he always does going out there, again, for anyone that thinks that Edwin just decided to mix things up with heavy sticky substance one outing out of the year is not paying attention. Literally, he does the same exact routine every single time out there. And I can tell you in confidence with people I know within the organization, that people who work with the coaching staff that the Mets have, that they all are under the firm belief backing Edwin Diaz, that there was nothing nefarious going on there. So it was an unfortunate situation with an ump having an ego trip, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, again, it just coming off stickier to them than what it currently is, whether impacting that just how he goes about gripping the baseball with the raws and everything, whatever it entails, Edwin Diaz, when he returns to this bullpen, is going to be massive. He was looking electric when he was first returning from his injury there that we saw off the 15-day IL, and I expect Edwin Diaz to be the dominant reliever again for the Mets here in a couple days. And the great news, we do get him back, and we do get him back this series, so the Mets can utilize him, I do believe, as soon as the 6th, which should be this Saturday. So we'll see what happens on that front. Again, when it comes to suspensions in the game of baseball with sticky substance, they have been so Jekyll and Hyde, and the reasoning behind them, they have definitely been ones that you want to see there be some type of clarity on, because there's none whatsoever. And the fact that it's as subjective as it is ridiculous. And mind you, everybody, if you know, the sticky substance breakdown started 2+ years ago, not because of the MLB having a reason to say, okay, let's try to eliminate hit by pitches, which is what their claim was. No, it was just bullshit nonsense, because they didn't want pitchers to be having the success that they were having. One, manipulating the baseball that they were, but two, they were fed up with guys like Trevor Bauer, funny enough, going out of their way to showcase that, yeah, if you're not going to crack down, if you're not going to do anything about pitchers using spider tack to manipulate their RPMs and their break on their pitches for swing and miss, I'm going to do it right in front of your face and win a Cy Young. And that's exactly what Trevor Bauer did in 2020. And because of that, we saw Rob Manfred essentially respond. So if you guys want to literally blame anyone, it's Rob Manfred not acting for as long as he did, allowing sticky substance to continue with guys like Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander there during their time both together with the Houston Astros, among others. And then also wanting to change the baseballs. That's the big thing. Let's not forget, 2+ years ago when the season started, the MLB had the worst start to an offense throughout the first month and a half of the season for the first time in basically, like, we're talking 100 years. It was terrible numbers. Like, we're talking decades long. At least said we have not seen MLB have that low home run rates, offensive rates, and no hitters galore was skyrocketing like never before. Funny enough, as the sticky substance breakdown happens, the ball is flying like never before. And I assure you, it has a lot more to do with just the sticky substance breakdown, but also changing the baseballs that the MLB, in which they manipulate themselves, do every single season. This is not a controversy. This is not me having my tinfoil hat on. It's actually real. You can look it up yourselves. It's all there. We talk about this. Pete Alonso's talked famously about how he believes the baseballs are impacted to a degree based on the upcoming free agent class. That also is true. Yes, it definitely goes in hand to a degree depending on if the class is more starting pitching dominant or offensively dominant, for the sake of course, their value coming down a bit come the offseason. Even though that hasn't changed too much, and throwing out $700 million bags to guys like Shohei Ohtani among others. And I apologize for this tangent, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here, actually, I'm not even gonna tell you what I was initially gonna say, because I'd be lying if I said that I had my point rounded out here. All I'm saying is, when it comes to the bullpen and stuff like that for Edwin Diaz, that was the point I was trying to make. I do believe that he was not doing anything nefarious. It was bullshit. And because of that nonsense that the MLB decides to have a power trip with, they have single-handedly hurt the Mets in more ways than one over the past week plus, with Edwin Diaz out, obviously, in said suspension. The Pittsburgh series is a 4-game series, not 3. Oh, I see what you're saying. My mistake, Steven. I'm the ass, not you. I apologize. Okay, I gotcha. So it's a 4-game set there in Pittsburgh, just like it was a 4-game set here in DC. I don't like that. I gotta be honest with you. Pittsburgh and the Mets have not been a great pairing in Pittsburgh in the summer in recent years. If you know, you know. 2021 still gives me PTSD when I had to witness Edwin Diaz give up a walk-off grand slammy on an expected batting average of .03 to Jacob Effing Stallings. The one game I went out of my way, 4.5-hour drive to PNC Park with my buddy Jonah, sitting front row, first and only time at PNC Park thus far, right behind the Mets dugout, and that is how that game ends. Funny enough, it was on 4th of July, I believe, so the timing could have been crazier. 3 years ago now, oh my God. But let's also not forget Jacob deGrom going down with injury around that time, Francisco Lindor with the oblique, Taijuan Walker somehow letting the ball get past him and like 2 runs scoring, it appeared. It was a whole fluke, and I've hated the Pirates since then. I really have. While I love the wagon of a starting pitching group that they have right now, and I love myself some O'Neal Cruz, what I love more is the Mets absolutely kicking their teeth in this 4-game set. So hopefully they can do exactly that, because if the Mets can win 3 out of 4, then they win this series in confidence, and I will be pumped up, because if you win 3 out of 4, that means that you more than likely jumped on 1 or 2 solid starters, very good starters by the Pirates, especially if you get any damage done on Skeens or Keller. I will come out ecstatic about that. Am I expecting it to happen? Not necessarily, but I do have a confidence in the Mets offense showing up a beautiful 4-game set there in Pittsburgh at PNC Park, one of the best ballparks in Major League Baseball with the scenery alone. I mean, to see the entire landscape of Pittsburgh, to be right on the water there, the bridge, everything about it, right by Heinz Field, because I'm not going to call it whatever they call it now. It'll always be Heinz Field for me as a Steelers fan, and that's all I got to say about that. Fair or foul, Wardy, in regards to what? In regards to Taijuan Walker, yes, again, that was the controversy, if it was fair or foul. Yep, that was ridiculous. This is a must-win series. It is. The same way that this series, you could rightfully argue, should have been a must-win series. You know what? It's all right. We split it on this. I hope a better performance from them against the Pirates. Yeah, again, it's not the end of the world. This series is not, the worst thing to happen to the Mets, but it's definitely a gut punch, especially when you blow the 5-run lead that you had yesterday. Yesterday's loss hurts more than anything. This loss just stings because of yesterday's loss. That's why the Carlos Mendoza, Adrian Hauser decision was a little bit more amplified for me, because of, again, all the other surrounding factors. Point is, this offense was a no-show today, and that is why they lost and ultimately split this series. And the bullpen is the main culprit as to why the Mets found themselves playing this series, in part because of yesterday, that we saw Jake Diekman being the most god-awful southpaw one could see in a bullpen, especially for the Metropolitans. The fact that he isn't DFA'd is because obviously the Mets need as much arm help as they can get, but should they get arm help, and should they get, again, a controllable or even a short-term southpaw option in this pen, even consider Joey Lucchesi for all I care, there. Josh Walker, take your pick. I just want guys that can get outs, and Jake Diekman right now is far from one of them. Let's see. Possibly in another team slump. I wouldn't even call this a big team slump. Both teams didn't show up offensively today. Just bad luck. Couldn't get the win. When you score 0 runs, no matter what pitcher you have, it doesn't matter if you get one hit. No, you're 100% right. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. The suspension was beyond sketchy, says Scott in the chat. All they said was a foreign substance, so no actual proof, just speculation. Can't do that. No, you can't. And it's ridiculous. And then we see MOC Baseball in the chat says, of the 15 relief pitchers in the MLB that have inherited 25-plus runners, Tanner Banks of the White Sox Southpaw ranks 4th in inherited run scored percentage at 27%. The league average is 33%, so he's above average. Doesn't walk guys in 20-plus K to walk percentage. That's very solid. The White Sox got a lot of guys I would like. Garrett Crochet is obviously tip of the top of the list, but it likely won't happen. Eric Fetty's right up there. That actually has some more realism as to if it can happen, because David Stearns loves some Eric Fetty. If you guys remember from his pursuit in the offseason, tried very hard to land him. Fetty's been nails all year, and I had Garrett Crochet and Eric Fetty as a top 5 1-2 pitching duo in all Major League Baseball that I broke down in Bleacher Report yesterday, along with also breaking down my initial reaction that we saw to obviously everything happening with the All-Star starters yesterday. So if you didn't check out my work with BR yesterday, go in the BR app, go to MLB News, scroll down a little bit, and you'll see your boy Wardy, the schmuck that I am, talking about all those things. Wardy, who do you want to see them get in the bullpen? I talked about a lot of different options there. There's a lot of options to consider for this Mets bullpen externally for sure. How are the Bunnies? They're doing fantastic, explosive. Thank you for asking. I'll actually pan real quick if you're still here in the chat so you guys can see. Just give me 1 second here. If you guys can see right down there are the Bunnies, folks. So to the left, we have Gigi, and to the right, we have Stormy. Both of them are very calm and are chilling at the moment. Absolute beauty of bunnies that they are. But if you know, you know. My OGs on the channel know I got 2 bunnies, and know I am now a new father. So yes, I do have 3 kids to attend to. One of them is a little bit louder than the others, and yes, the one that is louder, as a surprise, absolutely nobody, is my son. So let's see here. Alonso's totally overrated. Both Vientos and Alvarez are already much more dangerous hitters. Alonso, I don't even want to say if he's overrated right now. People are just kind of like, yeah, Pete's Pete, you know? Pete's having an underwhelming up and down year. We know this in a walk year, which is not ideal for him. Or for the sake of the Mets, is helping the Mets save money, but it isn't helping in the case of Wine to also go out of your way to bring him back either, truthfully. WardyNYM, mind if I say something about how we botched it? Mets, by all means, go ahead and let it rip in the chat before we wrap this one up, everybody. And before we wrap it up, folks, before we see what Mets 2128 has to say in the chat, everybody, continue to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below to this series split. Everything that you guys have to say about that, greatly appreciate it. Thank you all so much in advance for doing so. Hit that like and subscribe button. Help us get to 50 likes by the end of the live show. That'd be greatly appreciated. We don't even have 100 concurrent viewers in here because obviously it's a 4th of July. Everyone's out enjoying themselves and probably not wanting to talk about this godforsaken baseball game. But I appreciate everyone going out of their way to do exactly that. So thank you all so much. Continue to smash those buttons. And now let's hear a quick word from our amazing sponsor on the channel. And that, of course, is our great friends at SoRare MLB.
It's heating up this July on SoRare MLB, where the thrill of the chase meets the prospect of big rewards. Lock in and go yard, collecting cards and playing your way to the top. Get things right and you'll be calling your shot at a share of over $225K in total cash prizes and more. Join for free. Build your winning roster, watch your players perform, and improve your strategy each week for a shot at being crowned a champion. Sign up and enter now. July is for baseball.
You heard it right there, folks. Get in with SoRare MLB today, the best MLB fantasy game out there. Make sure you're getting involved with the July Chase in case you haven't already, folks, and all the awesome tournaments that they have currently going on. As again, the grand prize winner, when looking at that in particular, folks, that we're going to find ourselves with is a whopping, yes, $15,000 to the July Chase winner that comes in first place. So don't miss out on your chance to manage your team today, dominate the leaderboards, and win big. Sign up for free at SoRare today and join the revolution. Check them out, of course, everybody. July is for baseball. Sign up for free and play SoRare MLB. And as you guys and gals can see here are my SoRare MLB rosters currently. I showed you guys these yesterday as well, but to reiterate, this is the one that's rocking the most right now. And again, if you do well in these tournaments, you win huge cash prizes, as I mentioned. Upgraded cards for your roster, better than ones than what you currently have per se, and even ones that you can buy, sell, and trade on the marketplace. If you get ones that are at least in the limited rarity the way that these are here on the gold ones. All these ones cost actual dollars that you can buy, sell, and trade on the Sorare MLB Fantasy Marketplace. You can do it with your friends or just do it online with random people. But as you see here, this is a roster that's rolling the best thus far. George Kirby, 21 points. Josh Hader, 18. Josh Naylor, 27. Gunnar Henderson, surprisingly with nothing somehow when he's been carrying me every week. 45 with Jeremy Pena, 5 with Adley, and 26 with Brandon Nimmo. The next set of tournaments officially begin tomorrow, everybody. So just around 23 hours to make sure you put in your rosters for tomorrow. These are the ones that I already have set. I have 4 different rosters set up in this one, actually, including Jake Diekman in one of them. So it's safe to say that this one is going to go absolutely nowhere between Lance Lynn and Jake Diekman. I might as well just say that this is going to be a death sentence. Can't say the same for all these others. I'm pretty confident. And I do have Tanner Scott as well. Hopefully future Metropolitan Southpaw reliever from the Miami Marlins. We would love to see him there, folks. El Troll, of course, Mr. Francisco Alvarez. Love that card. He's been dominant, especially since coming back from his injury, folks. But get involved today with our great friends at Sorare MLB by clicking the link in the description down below to sign up. We're going to be doing amazing giveaways with them. We gave away Mets tickets to a bunch of amazing Mets fans this season, all for signing up with our unique link and, of course, just playing and entering a tournament for free. That's all you got to do. And we will be doing more giveaways like that in the near future, so be on the lookout. But to hop back in this one, folks, before we wrap it up, I want to see if my man in the chat says, let's see, blame this on Barnes. This team showed no discipline at the plate today. He also says here, let's go down the list for a second. And Hefner was incompetent last night. Fire both of them at all costs. Here's what I have to say about Barnes and Chavez. I couldn't care less, truly, what happens to them, because neither of them have clearly shown a great impact, in my opinion, on the hitting approach. If it isn't for JD Martinez, the Mets don't have the hitting approach that they have this year. Literally, JD Martinez has been documented to have had a significant impact for this Mets hitting approach between giving them weighted metal bats to swing in BP pregame, which has helped them a lot, especially in the case of Jose Iglesias, to find more power in his swing with his slugging. Also, Martinez has went out of his way in so many different ways to help each and every one of these individual batters being a part of these discussions that they have in their room when they're talking with Chavez and Barnes, among others. So yeah, I agree with you there in the sense of, I'm not opposed to getting rid of them. It isn't going to happen right now, obviously, with the way that the Mets are currently standing this season, just a game below 500 and everything. But yes, I understand the frustration, but I would like to preface that the lack of offense today, I truly believe, was nothing more than Irvin pitching great, which he has pretty much all season for the Nationals, 1. But 2, both teams having no-show offenses. A very tired, a very sluggish day for an 11 a.m. game, because they want a quick turnaround with it being 4th of July. So that's what I got to say about that. And again, that is what I have to say about the show, folks, because we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I greatly appreciate it. Stay tuned. We will be back live tomorrow as Paul Skeens toes the rubber there against the Metsies. Hopefully a big win for the Mets and beat up on Paul. That would be amazing. But if we get carved up, rest assured, we should not be surprised. Paul Skeens is one of the best young right-handers in the game today. We should not be surprised if he comes out and, say, pitches 6 unbelievably dominant innings with, say, 8 to 10 strikeouts. So it'd be far from shocking. But what wouldn't shock me also is this Mets team, honestly, having offense early and often, because they have done that greatly for the past month and a half. So we'll see what happens in that big series in Pittsburgh, everybody. Your boy will be out of town, so the setup will be a little bit different. I will be by the beach for the weekend, so if you guys see the backdrop not the same, that is the reason why. The audio should be fine. I'm going to do my show probably through my laptop, so everything should be fine on the graphics end and everything. Just the quality might just be a smidge lower than what it currently is. Outside of that, I look forward to talking to you guys all tomorrow and throughout the weekend. Until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening, whenever you're watching this. The Mets drop a very frustrating one, split their series against DC, and now look for a big 4-game set here in Pittsburgh against those Pirates. Have a great one, folks, and as always, no matter what,